Thank you to Mentor Lawyer at Deep Dive True Crime for bringing us all of this wonderful information. When I first heard that one of Wendy's former friends had contacted the state's attorney's office, I was intrigued to say the least. A former friend of Wendy's wanting to work with the state meant only one thing for me. When emails between Sara and Wendi were released, I became even more excited. Thursday, August 4th, 2016, Wendi Adelson. Would you consider speaking on my behalf on print or news media? I need your help. Please let me know ASAP. If so, I will get you in touch with my lawyer, John Lauro. Hugs, Wendi. Sara Yousuf. Dear Wendi, I love you and want to help you so much. What exactly would you like me to do/say? Here's my concern. I think the prosecution would then subpoena me to ask me about the details of the marriage and our conversations over the last several years. I wouldn't want them to get additional facts and twist and turn them to harm you. I want to keep you safe. Love, Sara. Of course, my response to this was, oh my God, what does she know that she doesn't want the state to get a hold of? Because clearly, as a close friend to Wendi, she's had to have heard some dirt. Because even though Wendi did her best to curtail Jane's comments, we were definitely able to get the vibe from her about what Wendi thinks of Dan.
I mean, obviously, I would be one of the people that they would think did it.
Well, you have certainly the most contentious relationship with Danny that anyone has.
Yeah.
But
he had plans that we would he said this at 9, we'll take a walk, we'll figure this out, we'll talk about school. And then I called him at 11:45 or so and left a message. And that was, I thought weird, but I thought whatever,
and
he's in a meeting.
You probably thought, oh good, I don't have to talk to him. But
I was really anxious about speaking with him and having this be a contentious issue about where our kid is going to go to school.
Oh my God.
I didn't even know that he was still living. Sarah told me that, and then I started freaking out and was like, I want to get the boys over there. Is he scary looking? Because I want, if he's not going to make it, but he's okay. Or he's not, I wanted the boys to be able to be with him.
Shouldn't somebody be with him?
I know, that's what I said. I was like, he's there, and he's full on, I was like, is he with...
Shouldn't somebody who loves him?
Yes. Should I go?
So first, as Wendi is telling Jane that she understands why the cops would suspect her of the murder, Jane immediately responds and states very clearly that Wendi has the most contentious relationship with Danny that anyone has. An assertion completely contrary to what Wendi has been trying to portray to everyone.
You're going through such a bad divorce, you wouldn't be at his house, right?
I wouldn't be at his house anyway, but not because we were going through a bad divorce. At that time, things were pretty copacetic.
In the next clip, Wendi talks about the plans that she had to discuss where Ben was going to school, but couldn't get a hold of Danny to do so. To which Jane immediately blurts out how thrilled Wendi must have been to be able to avoid this conversation. As Jane cackles, Wendi gives her a death stare and then proceeds to continue speaking in a relaxed, non-accusatory way, citing only that she was anxious about discussing this contentious issue.
You probably thought, oh good, I don't have to talk to him. But
I was really anxious about speaking with him and having this be a contentious issue.
The final clip is, I think, the most telling. After one of the worst things comes out of Wendi's mouth, I didn't even know he was still living, Sara told me, and I started freaking out. Wendi mentions that Danny is in the hospital by himself. To which Jane says, shouldn't somebody be with him? And then more clearly specifies, shouldn't someone who loves him be with him? To which Wendi emphatically replies, yes. Should I go? And Jane, without missing a beat, retorts, no, not you. Wendi, I said someone who loves him, not someone who certainly has the most contentious relationship with him that anyone has. So Sara, who is a criminal defense attorney, clearly had a solid understanding of how trials work. and has enough evidence of Wendi and Danny's nasty divorce that her testimony would surely be used against Wendi. So, in Wendi's best interest, declines to give this positive statement on her behalf. To which Wendi replies, "No worries, my friend. Love you. Me." Now, for context, we must look at the date of this email request. Thursday, August 4th, 2016. This comes 2 months after the arrest of Sigfredo Garcia, and after his probable cause affidavit has been unsealed, citing his being hired in association with Wendi's acrimonious divorce from Markel. In the probable cause affidavit signed on May 25th, 2016, it reads, "Motive for murder. Investigators obtained information from sources that Markel had gone through a bitter divorce with Wendi Adelson, who was a professor at the FSU Law School. Wendi filed for divorce on Monday, September 10th, 2012. Markel reportedly returned home from a business trip to find his family gone, a majority of the contents of the house missing, and the paperwork for dissolution of marriage displayed on his bed. He eventually learned that Wendi and their 2 children had moved to her parents' home in Coral Springs, Florida. Reportedly, Markel protested and Wendi returned to Leon County with the children until legal arguments could be heard. On June 20th, 2013, Leon County Circuit Judge Hobbs formally denied with prejudice Wendi's motion for relocation with the children. Email evidence indicates Wendi's parents, especially her mother, wanted Wendi to coerce Markel into allowing the relocation to South Florida. Additionally, Wendi's brother Charlie Adelson reportedly did not like Markel and did not get along with him. It goes on to further state the connection to Garcia is through Katie McBanoa, who at the time of the murder was dating Charlie Adelson. Further investigation revealed that Sigfredo Garcia is the father of both of Katie's 2 children. The affidavit concludes by highlighting the fact that there was no previous contact found between Markel and Garcia, and that he is believed to have been enlisted to commit this crime, as Markel was not known by him nor had been interacted with him before. And as we know, one of the most key players in corroborating this information was Luis Rivera.
I want to make sure I understand it. Did you ever meet or know or hear of Daniel Markel before this occurred?
No.
No?
Speak up loud.
Think if I heard about him?
Did you ever hear of him?
No, not at all.
Never heard of him? Never knew anything about him?
No, sir.
No one's ever mentioned that name before?
No, sir, not at all.
What about Wendi Adelson?
Not at all either.
Anybody else by the last name of Adelson?
No, sir.
Okay. When's the first time, if you can recall, when you first understood that you were going to come to Tallahassee? Because my understanding is you've never been to Tallahassee before.
Never been up here.
Okay. What was the circumstances of the first that caused you to come to Tallahassee the very first time?
I thought the first time I was coming up here, I thought we were going to come here and rob somebody. You know? So when I get in the car, that's when Garcia told me, what we coming up here for? Coming out here to kill somebody.
So before you got in the car, you had a conversation with Sigfredo Garcia,
In my house.
Tudo,
Yeah.
at your house, and he says he wants you to go with him to Tallahassee
Yeah.
to do a drug robbery,
My understanding when he was talking to me, first I thought it was going to be like a robbery.
just a robbery.
I thought it was going to be a simple robbery. But then I said, we kept going on talking about it. That's when he told me, listen, I got to come up here for a job. I'm finna get hired. We're getting hired, but to kill somebody.
You said they gave him $5,000. Tell us about that. What did he say? Where did he get the money from?
Oh, he said he got the money from the lady. He still haven't told me her name yet. He said, I got the money from the lady. Well, his wife gave him the money. So Katie gave him the money. But he told me about the lady. He told me, yo, the lady got the money. She gonna pay us. So, you know, all this driving around and talking to him about the money, I told him, we should just go rob her. That was my intention. Fuck this guy. I don't got nothing against that guy. I don't even know that guy. Especially after he told me about what was it for the 2 kids. So because I asked him, why are you gonna go kill this guy? Because the lady wants her 2 kids back. She want full custody of them kids. Because he had all the custody. That was the plan, that was the deal. That's what I went to go kill that man for.
And how did Tuda know all this?
Katie, I guess Katie told him everything. Katie told him everything, and then that...
But you're just guessing that. You don't know that for sure. Do you?
No, that's for sure. For sure Katie told him everything.
Right. How do you know that? How do you know Katie?
Because he stayed talking to Katie on the phone. Hey, babe, what's going on? Hey, the lady's gonna have... You sure she's gonna have the money on time? Tell her don't play with it because the will go show up in her house. Tell her she better have that fucking money. And he always kept telling her that.
So 2 years after the commission of the murder, and shortly after Sigfredo's arrest, Wendi starts to reach out to friends to vouch for her innocence. Another one of Sara's emails and Wendi's replies had also been released, and it states as follows. Tuesday, April 18th, 2017. Sara Yousuf. Subject, self-care. Hi, Wendi. I've been doing a bunch of deep work on myself to address my anxiety. I've discovered that I take on the stress of those around me. I need to take some space to work through this stuff. I hope you will understand and respect how difficult it is for me to send this email. You did nothing wrong. I just feel anxious and need some time to figure myself out. I wish you nothing but the best moving forward. Thank you for helping in my journey towards self-love. Sara. Wendi replies, I love you, Sara. Please do what you need to take the best care you can of you. You know that's what I would want for you. I will stop reaching out and trust that if or when you want to have contact with me, you will take that step. Interesting that simply being associated with Wendi proves too stressful to handle. However, we will learn the real reason behind this decision with the release of her deposition transcript. We learned that Sara and Wendi met in 2003 while both attending University of Miami School of Law. They remained close friends for 13 years up until the time that Sara ended the relationship. As Sara knew Wendi prior to her meeting Dan until several years after he was killed, she had a very good sense of who Wendi is. We will quickly cover what Donna said to her, and then we'll move on to Wendi. On or around Ben's birthday, which is July 29th, heartbreakingly 10 short days after the death of his father, Sara is invited and attends his birthday at Donna's condo. While in the kitchen, she notices Donna reading an article and hears Donna remark, You know, they're all talking about him like he was some beloved professor, but you know something? He was a jerk! Which of course rubbed Sara the wrong way, as one, what a heinous thing to say about anyone who has just passed. But about the father of your grandson at his birthday, for fuck's sake. Sara said it was so off-putting because most cultures don't speak ill of the dead, and the level of anger conveyed was so inappropriate due to the fact that Dan would, quote, never bother anyone again, which is eerily similar to what Junam Chinda reported to police during her interview with them.
And then he would also say he was so horrible to Wendi. And
so everybody, the whole family just, he's dead and they don't care. He's just this bad person to Wendi. It's kind of.
That's just all I've heard from them. Yeah, it's not the dad or anything, or
but mom
and Charlie.
And Charlie.
Is dad just kind of there? He's just kind of real quiet, or
he talks, but he's like talks about other things, and he is usually in the background, like, quiet or doing his own thing.
I think any beef you had with somebody would be squashed the instant they passed away. However, I think the reason why they feel the need to continue on disparaging Dan is for the self-justification for why they had to kill him. Believing that if they were to be able to convince other people what a monster Danny was, they would commiserate with them to either express the sentiment that they too were glad that he was dead, helping to absolve or even commend the Adelsons' despicable actions. The overt vilification of Dan after his death is not only culturally inappropriate, but considering the fact that he was murdered, the only people who would lack any empathy or remorse would be those involved. Sara and Wendi were very close friends. They attended law school together and even lived in the same apartment complex. They attended each other's weddings and frequently visited each other after Wendi moved to Tallahassee. Sara also attended Thanksgiving and other holidays at Donna and Harvey's residence, as well as visited Charlie's house on a number of occasions. Throughout Wendi's divorce, Wendi would forward Dan's motions to Sara. Wendi would also frequently discuss how difficult Dan was to be married to, and how much more difficult he was to be divorced from. Sara commented that she knew how contentious their divorce was. She talks about the day that Danny was killed. She said that she received a call from Wendi on this day. And please listen carefully, as I missed this initially. Quote, I remember Wendi calling me the day that Dan was murdered and telling me that she had just, Dan had been shot and we don't think that he is going to make it, unquote. I had just had one of the worst moments of my life telling the boys they don't have a father anymore. Wendi, you told the boys that night? And you're telling Sara that you told them that they don't have a father anymore, while telling her that he has not even passed yet? Wendi didn't even leave the police station until nearly 8 o'clock, in which time she was taken back to her house first to retrieve some overnight essentials and hand off her laptop to the police. And only after that was taken to Lynn and Alan's house where her boys were.
I don't want to be left alone in that house. I want protection. I'm scared. I don't know who this is. I don't.
Okay. Well, you should maybe go and stay. I think you should go stay with can you go to Lynn and David's?
Alan, yeah. Yeah.
You
they
should.
have lots of bedrooms. I could just
You
stay
should.
there for a
The
little
boys
bit.
are there.
Yeah.
And
I need to pick up a few things. I would need my contact lens case.
He
just said your eyes are really blue.
Right.
And
You have contacts?
I do.
Okay. We're going to get ready to leave here just a minute.
Great.
And I think we determined that.
We're going to go to my house. I'll give you my computer.
Right. And passcode or whatever.
Yeah.
And then from there, you're going to go to the friend's house.
Mm-hmm. I'll pack a bag and we'll go. Okay, so Joanna is going to come with us?
Yep.
I think my friend Jane is outside. She said she's parked outside TPD in case I need her. So we can tell her, I guess, that...
Jane?
Jane that was here.
McPherson?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't need her, I guess. She can come with, but...
We just want to make sure you get someplace that you're comfortable, and you've already told me enough reasons that you feel like that maybe whoever did this...
I don't want to go home.
Right. So we're going home just to get the clothing, the computer, and then we can get you on to the
Okay.
other, I can't remember their names now.
Alan and Lynn.
Right.
They live really close to me.
Okay.
You look like you've had a long day.
I have. Okay, so we'll be getting ready to go in just a minute, okay?
Okay, well, I feel like a fierce mama cat right now. I just want to get to my boys. And I know they're fine with Alan and Lynn, and I think
that you want to hold them and see
my
that they're
God.
okay with your own eyes, and
Yeah, I really need to be with them. Will I tell them? I can't see it. I don't want to. Okay, so we think Danny's not waking up. Is that? That's the thing. And I don't want to tell my kids that their father is gone if he's not.
Wendi, you were straight up asked if you were going to tell the boys that night.
You said no. The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Like, I don't want to have that.
Do you think you can be around them tonight without maybe disclosing to them?
I do.
Then maybe it's something you could just wait till the morning till you know a little bit more certainty.
Is somebody going to tell me? Like, if he doesn't make it and it's like official, is someone going to?
What? I mean, I'll know because they'll notify me, because then when incidents like this happen, they'll have to do an autopsy and things like that. So I can ask the investigator to let me know when. And you know, I think it's good for you tonight to just stay somewhere. And if you think you'd be comfortable tonight, just kind of waiting to see. I do.
You think that makes sense? Like, not just because I am still not.
Well,
what do you tell your children when their father was murdered?
It's just that, you know, he was really hurt and he had to either, you know, go to heaven, whatever kind of concept that they have on that.
I don't know how. I mean, I said, like, I don't know how much they get this, but like, he was fine. I know, but I'm just trying to figure out, how do I go to the house and tell them?
Did Wendi really tell her boys just before bedtime that they didn't have a father anymore and then just send them off to bed? And did this despite the fact that Dan was still alive at this point? Because from the way that she was talking to Jane and saying that Lynn and Alan had a lot of bedrooms, it didn't seem like she was planning on sleeping with her babies that night. And even though I can say that I'm not surprised, because obviously no one even considered that this plan might have had a negative impact on those tender little guys, still, my mama heart was hoping that a shred of decency would prevail here. But I guess not. As we know, Wendi went to Miami just days after Dan's murder and asked Sara and Sarah's husband at the time to come over and give her a hug.
Can I just like get a hug from her?
Let me see if she's still here. Okay. She's not up here probably, so let me see.
I'm sorry, I don't want to run you around. It's
No.
fine. Don't
Hey,
worry about it.
hey,
I just.
Do you want a hug from her?
I'd really love. Yeah. And if there was ever a woman I would really like to get a hug from, it's Renee. But I don't see if I could meet her for a hug at some point today.
I've always wanted my own little murderer. I will name her Wendi, and I will hug her and pet her and squeeze her. And pat her and pet her. And rub her and caress her.
Let's everybody go hug Wendi so she can show what a victim she is.
Wendi plays the victim so well. To me, it looked like classic Wendi.
Hi, Annie. Oh, dear. Oh, Wendi.
That's just classic Wendi. Classic! Sara then continues to talk about how she was sitting with Wendi, hugging her and supporting her while she grieved. And she is asked who Wendi's boyfriend at the time was. So here I am waiting for her to say Jeff, and she says his name is Kiar. Kiar. You spelled Jeff wrong.
She's in Miami, and while she's in Miami, she always says, she would just disappear for 14 days. I wondered if there was another man down in Miami too. It seemed plausible because her parents take care of the kids. It doesn't make sense how busy she is.
Jeff, if you get nothing else out of this, please know that you have been given the gift of great insight. Listen to your intuition and follow it like a compass because it will never steer you wrong. Poor Jeff. I found Kiar. At the time he was dating Wendi, he was working as a research assistant at Florida International University in Miami, Florida, developing high-temperature conductors, researching and developing nanobiosensor prototypes, and managing a team of graduate students. Fancy. Sara states one of the primary reasons behind ending her friendship with Wendi was how deceptive she was towards the men that she was dating. She said, quote, I feel like she was being misleading to a lot of the people that she was dating and making guys feel like they were the only one when they were not.
We had a good family life, terrible romantic relationship because she was cheating me all the time. But
Sara continues. She was crying and devastated and shaking, and her mind was going in all sorts of directions, which I think is understandable when somebody has been in her situation. But one thing that she kept repeating was, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. Guys, Wendi, just days after Dan's murder, is repeatedly saying, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life.
I understand why you think I'm the primary suspect.
No, you're not the primary suspect. I have, and it's
So
gonna.
I understand why I would be the person you would think would do something, but
Well, we have to.
and I get why I would be a suspect, but I can see why they would think it would be me. You know, and then I was thinking, oh my god, now they probably think I'm a suspect. I should.
But of course you're a suspect, and you're a smart suspect. You should be the suspect.
I'm assuming I'm a suspect. Like, do I need to be read my Miranda rights or something if you're gonna look at my phone?
I can read you Miranda if you want to hear
I don't
that.
know. I'm just trying to make sure I'm being.
I have no
convicted.
reason. I have no reason at this point to suspect you in this incident. Okay.
I couldn't tell from the way you were talking to me in the car if I was a suspect.
Well, no.
I understand why I'm a suspect. I guess I'm not a suspect. I understand why you would think that I would do this, but not you. But
right.
I just keep feeling like I'm a suspect, and I need to, like, am I a suspect? You need to.
I wonder how many times Jeff sat around with his friends telling them that he was going to prison for the rest of his life. Not sure, but I would guess 0. Sara elaborates on this, saying, at the time I was a public defender. I think I might have been a senior or a trainer, but I was handling with my mentor a case involving a wrongful conviction. And that's where most of my mental energy was going at the time, was that wrongful conviction. So I thought at the time that Wendi was referring to a possibility of a wrongful conviction. I thought people would suspect her, information. She was afraid that information would be wrongfully pieced together, especially with her and Dan's acrimonious history. Right. I thought that that's what she was sort of alluding to. Then the lawyer says, obviously, you're telling the story as if you're looking at it in hindsight. Now you're looking at it as if you drew the incorrect conclusion at the time. But that was a conclusion that you drew back then when she says, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. It's because she's obviously going to be a suspect if she's the ex. So Sara, at the time, figures that Wendi is saying that she's going to prison for the rest of her life because she thinks that she will be wrongfully convicted simply because she's the ex. A belief that Sara admits that she interpreted incorrectly and has since changed her mind about. Do we all understand the gravity of what was just said? Wendi, days after the murder, sitting in her parents' Miami condo, next to one of her best friends, Sara, and her boyfriend at the time, not Jeff, in the midst of crying and shaking, starts to repeat over and over, I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. I mean, at least she knows. But for real, no innocent person would act like this. Even if you had been actually charged and were innocent and sitting in jail, you would be proclaiming your innocence, not announcing that you were going to spend the rest of your life in prison. Sara's husband at the time, who is black, was sitting next to her, trying to lighten the situation. Joking to Wendi, saying, quote, Wendi, do you even know how white you are? Like, it's not happening. Trying to reassure her that that was not very likely due to her demographics. Which I agree with, and I also think was one of the things the family was banking on. They hired known Latino criminals and then figured that no one will ever suspect the wealthy white family as being behind this. I mean, shit, Charlie even says it himself.
Someone comes up to me, they better be ready to shoot. I'm ready to shoot. Someone comes up to me, asks me for money in my house. Yeah, and guess what? When the fucking police show up, and there's a doctor there's an oral surgeon standing there with a dead gang member in the fucking driveway, they're not going to come down too hard on me. And I'm not going to talk anyway. I don't know much and I don't trust them.
He's such an arrogant fuck. Sara continues and is now discussing the months to a year after the murder. Quote, so over the course of the next year after the homicide, Wendi didn't bring up the homicide very much at all. Myself and other members of our social group weren't very interested, and I wouldn't say at all, but that's probably an exaggeration, but not much. So on a few occasions, I brought up what's going on with the investigation? What have the police learned? Did they find out anything more? And she told me on a few different occasions, oh, the police suspect one of his former students. Oh, the police suspect somebody related to a case that he was working on in New York. The police suspect, I think those were the two. Oh, and his new girlfriend's ex-husband. Those were the three scenarios she did present to me as things the police were looking into. She implied, if not explicitly, said that this information was coming directly from the police and she was in touch with them. She did forward me an article, that they're not finding any leads or whatever, an article from the Democrat saying, not much new on this case. So she led me to believe that she was in regular communication with the police. Something that we know to be categorically false, as her 6-hour police interrogation was the one and only time she ever spoke to Isom or anyone else at TPD. A fact that the lawyers cut Sara off to immediately clarify, saying because you found out or learned what to the contrary that she had invoked after giving her statement and then never contacted the police again. But she was representing to you that you felt that she was representing to you that she was in communication with law enforcement. And here's the leads that they're following. They then asked her if it was possible that Wendi was getting the information from her lawyer and passing it along to Sara. To which Sara reconfirmed that no, Wendi was implying that it was coming straight from the police. And I feel like I've said it 100 times in every other video, but this is why it was so important for Isom to be as gentle as he was with Wendi that day. He knew that this was the only opportunity that he was going to have to talk to this woman. And trust me when I say I would have loved to see him slam her against the wall and get all in her face and demand that she confess to what she did.
Can't hide from me behind your fancy education. I smell you. No.
But if he would have done that, we would have not had the whole delicious interrogation of Wendi Adelson that we are so fortunate to have to be able to pick apart. Sara goes on, quote, I drew that conclusion once I learned that she had stopped speaking to the police after she gave the statement, when she invoked her right to counsel. But when she told me about these investigations, she said, the police think. She didn't say, my lawyer is telling me. So I feel that she was trying to get me to believe that she was in communication with the police directly and that these were the leads that they were investigating at the time. Now, why is this distinction so important? Why would it matter if Wendi was getting information directly from the police or not? Well, very simply, that's what innocent people would do. Somebody not involved in the murder would likely be in frequent communication with the police to see if there were any new leads or any updates in the case. And that is very likely why Wendi was trying to portray that she was doing just that. But in lying about it, adds just another layer of deception onto her lie pile that any innocent person wouldn't have to fabricate. This is one of the problems with being a lying piece of shit. You have to continue to build on top of the lie you created before to bring credibility to that lie. Sara states that she didn't become aware of the fact that Wendi had invoked her right to counsel until the first trial in 2019. The lawyers point out that this was not a factor in their relationship coming to an end in 2017. To which Sara agrees and remarks that she, quote, did believe that Wendi was doing a number of behaviors to protect her family from being held accountable for the murder.
Let me ask you, if you found out that this was someone that you personally know, would that change your mind about what should happen to that person?
About what should happen to that person?
For prosecution purposes.
No.
Is there any way that you would think
somebody tried to kill my ex-husband? They should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Regardless of who it is.
I mean, it would be different if I thought it were my brother, but I don't think it was my family. Anyone outside my immediate family, that's a tough one.
Okay.
But I don't think my immediate family did this. So
Okay.
if it's anybody else, yeah.
It doesn't matter how many times I watch that clip, I still cannot get over the fact that she actually said that. Sara is then asked if she adopted the belief that Charlie and Donna were involved after reading the probable cause affidavit that implicated them. To which she replied, yes. They then go on to question whether this belief was also confirmed by something that happened that she was able to personally observe. To which she provided the following information, quote, if I remember correctly, the probable cause affidavit contained the information about the payment being made and how the payment was made to the hitmen. Quote, I think it also contained information about like speaking in code. I think it also contained information about like the bump and the behavior after the bump. So that combined with my personal knowledge of, them, Charlie, having a whole lot of money that he'd like to throw around and the family's hatred of Dan combined with how protective Donna and Charlie were over Wendi. Combined with some of my observations about Wendi's behavior, like particularly the statements she made after the murder, but also her what I would characterize as a lack of curiosity about who did it. Which, remarkably, Junam Chinda said the exact same thing.
Yeah, they weren't ever curious either, who really killed him, or they weren't upset about it. It seemed like, he never asked me, or never told me, was curious who did do it then. If it wasn't him, he never said, oh, I wonder who killed Dan, or... Yeah, so I just thought it was weird that he never asked or wondered once, who really did it. He never mentioned, I wonder who did it, or this person might have done it, or I feel bad for Dan, or, no remorse or anything.
Yeah,
None. Even told you how terrible he was, right? How bad he was to Wendi. Almost like he deserved it.
And then when I first asked him about Wendi's ex, and he just said, oh, he got shot, it was just period, and he didn't give me any more information. I was like, okay.
Really?
He just said they don't know who did it, and then changed the subject and stuff.
Really?
Before you guys even, the case came up again.
Yeah.
Before it became public.
So he used to just shut up about that whole thing.
Just not talk about it at all, just say he's dead, and that's the end of it.
It's kind of odd.
And it was a weird explanation, yeah,
it's kind of odd.
They shot him in the head and they don't know who did it.
Especially since they don't know who did it, it'd be kind of odd to...
That he wouldn't be curious
Yeah.
himself or something.
Exactly.
Tell anybody.
That's what was weird to me. I'm always well, if you didn't do it, then who do you think did it or something? And he wouldn't ever show any sympathy or anything, or curiosity or... And then he would also say he was so horrible to Wendi, and
So everybody, the whole family just, he's dead and they don't care. He's just this bad person to Wendi. It's kind of...
That's just all I've heard from them, yeah.
Crazy. Again, if you aren't curious about who committed the crime, it's because you know. Sara confirms that the time this was occurring was about a year after the murder and before the probable cause affidavits were released. She continues sharing, quote, I can only say that she was not expressing sort of like stress or curiosity about who did it. And she told us, well, she told me that the police thinks that it's these things. Then, after, I would say about a year after the murder, I asked one more time, and she told me, quote, Sarah, most murders are solved within the first 48 hours. Wow. It seems like little Wendy Pooh thought she was home free and that this would remain an unsolved crime.
If they taking this out, right, they'll figure out who did this.
That will be their goal, and that they figure it out.
There are unsolved crimes, aren't there?
I mean, there's always unsolved crimes, but I would say these guys that work here are really good. They're going to be working really hard, probably throughout tonight into the weekend.
We cannot forget Sarah's profession. Quote, at that point, I was a senior supervising attorney at the public defender's office. I was carrying a caseload of exclusively homicides. And although that's true that most murders are solved within the first 48 hours, I had many cold cases. I had many, 10-year-old cases, 12-year-old cases. And I was also really aware that this wasn't most murders, at least from my understanding. She's then asked what she thinks the significance of Wendi making the remark that most murders are solved within the first 48 hours was. Sarah said, quote, it means to me, I've given up hope that it will be solved, okay? And that felt like she was trying to get me to stop asking about it. I just said, okay, and felt like she was trying to get me to stop asking about it. She was trying to get me to stop. Yeah, that's what I believe. I believe that was the purpose of that statement. Very perceptive, Sarah. I'm sure out of all people, Wendi likely wanted Sarah, the criminal defense lawyer, to stop asking her about it the most. They continue and ask if there was anything else about her behavior that may have been strange. Sarah responds, quote, okay. So then, about a year after the homicide, her tone talking about it shifts from like, I'm in a lot of fear over my safety, my boy's safety, I'm terrified, I feel like I'm a refugee, I feel like my clients.
I don't know who would do this.
Okay, well, it appears from what we've seen so far that someone intentionally hurt Danny. Okay, intentionally. Okay, I don't think.
You don't know who it is.
No, and I don't
think. What if
think.
they come after the boys?
I don't think that's going to be. I have no indication at this time that that's a threat. Okay, but the boys are going to stay with you. You're not going to back over to Trescott. Okay.
No, I don't live there anymore.
I know you don't.
I can't believe this is happening. I don't understand, and I'm very scared because if this can happen, like, what if someone's going to come after the kids? Like, who did this, and why would they do this?
And from, what they're missing, they haven't had any indications of that.
Do you think someone can watch the house where I'm going to be with the kids tonight to make sure that nobody comes after us?
We'll discuss kind of that type of stuff. I'm going to make sure that they know all your concerns and fears.
Okay. That's good for the kids. Like, I don't want people... I don't know what to do about, like, the kids are really young. I don't know what to do in terms of that reaction, but I also am kind of scared that there's, like, some maniac out there, and I would like for you to find whoever that is, so I don't want to make things worse in some way in terms of you being able to find someone.
Okay.
That's all I'm asking.
Now there's a maniac out there, and she's concerned for the kids. Not to fear, Wendi. The maniac is in here.
I have no idea who would do this, and I feel like they're out there. And if they're capable of this, like, what's to keep them from going after the kids? Like, if they hate Danny, then why wouldn't they hate his children? Is the police officer still at school? Like, are the boys safe there right now?
I don't know the for sure answer to that, but I do know that they checked on them. And
I know they checked on them, but like the kids, I just want to make sure they're okay.
Let me go talk and let me ask them that for you. Wendy, look at me. There's no reason for them to think that anything's going to happen to the boys right now, okay?
Okay.
And I just want you to know that there's no indications that...
But why would someone do this? Like, why wouldn't they just come after my whole family?
I do hear your concern. I do. I just want you to know, though, like, there's no... If there was an indication...
I mean, there's no indication some crazy person was gonna kill Danny, so why would they not think someone was gonna... Like, anything could happen, right?
From what I understood, that there was someone that was at the school.
They didn't find anyone like running away at the scene, did they?
I don't know that answer. Okay. I'm sorry. I know I'm giving you a lot of I don't know.
I know. I'd rather that than you make something up, but I just have no idea what's happening right now.
I'm sorry.
Do you think whoever did this is going to come after the kids?
I'm very worried about that. And I think...
I don't want to be, like, left alone in that house. Like, I want protection. I'm scared. I don't know who this is. I don't...
Okay, well...
I mean, we just want to make sure you get someplace that you're comfortable, and you've already told me enough reasons that you feel like that maybe whoever did this...
I don't want to go home.
Right. So we're going home just to get the clothing, the computer, and then we can get you onto the... I can't remember their names now.
Alan and Lynn.
You saw her statement in the press. She's worried for the safety of her and her children. No one's suggesting a serial killer looking for Jewish warriors, you know? I mean, this was pretty targeted, so...
Yeah, you think, she's concerned for her children's safety.
Wendi plays the victim so well. To me, it looked like classic Wendi. Everybody else felt bad for her. I thought, holy crap, she did this. She plays the victim instantly. She's great at it.
For those who don't know, Wendi was working as an immigration lawyer. I think comparing herself to a refugee is pretty dramatic. She continued to live a very privileged life in South Beach with no actual fear for her safety. I swear, the actual fucking nerve of this woman. But then Sara shares what her tone shifted to. Quote, to a tone that I would describe as crass and inappropriate. So, for example, she would say, Danny got whacked.
When she was just in town, she was cracking jokes about Danny getting his head blown off. Oh, when she was up here, how's this for awkward? My best friend sat next to her in a bat mitzvah. He refers to her, just so you know what it's like in the community, he calls her the murderer in common conversation. He is convinced. I don't know how, I mean, a lot of people, and that's not from my take on it, that's his take on it. Right. He knows I could be crazed. He had to sit next to her in a bat mitzvah for 4 hours. She's cracking jokes about Danny getting his head blown off.
Head blown off?
Yes, cracking. And I can't remember the exact joke, but that was how he put it, at least. And he said he looked at her and said, Wendy, that's totally inappropriate.
Where was this at?
So it was the Andrew Epstein's daughter's bar mitzvah.
Okay.
Which was 3 weekends ago. She was here for 4 days. And in the evening, she was pretty much herself, but she was cracking jokes. She told some of my friends that she's changing their names to Adelson. She still hates Danny more than you would ever think. And no one has ever heard her say one sympathetic thing about Danny and Markel to this day, and it's just weird. Why would you be hanging on to anger? I mean, it's so... I can only think of one reason, to make the world make sense to you. But yeah, she was cracking jokes, which sometimes people deal with pain in that way. I get that, but I mean...
How did she say it? How did he tell you she said it?
He might have sent me a... Oh, here's what she said. There was one just general joke, but I have the other text. He said, my favorite quote from tonight, I overheard Wendi saying, at least it didn't happen to Jeff or the kids or somebody I actually cared about.
Okay.
So that was the vibe.
Some vibe. My God, Wendi, you are such trash. The lawyers confirm, quote, so immediately after the murder, you said, for about a year's period of time, She's actively expressing fear for herself as well as fear for her children, meaning, I don't know who did this, and I'm scared that somebody's coming for us. Then try to pinpoint the approximate time the shift happens and ask if it was around July of 2015. And Sara states that she couldn't be positive of the exact time because she couldn't remember it happening in line with like a birthday or a holiday or anything. Just that, quote, it's her tone and demeanor and voice inflection and things like that. Yes, but I'll just say that sometime after the dust settled and some time passed, the time, I think it's about a year, her tone shifted. Which you would think that if Wendi was genuinely fearful for her and her children's safety, there being this passage of time in which the killers had still not been caught, the fear would then still remain. And the fact that she still held so much animosity towards Danny is seriously concerning. Marriages fail, people make wrong choices, and children often add another layer of stress onto already fragile relationships. Wendi herself admits that she was never even in love with Danny, that he had been selected for breeding purposes only.
We married when I was in my mid-20s, when I thought I could cheat the system and marry a man I lacked passionate love for because, hey, didn't that die anyway during marriage? I saw his intellect and big heart and thought he would make a wonderful father for my children.
Read as, I saw he attended Harvard Law and knew that would translate into a big bank account, as well as bragging rights for my family. So you chose him like a dog because you thought he would make a good father for your children. And then after he served his purpose, you disposed of him. Sara remembers at least 2 times when she personally heard Wendi referred to Danny as getting whacked. Sara then moves to the time just after Sigfredo is arrested. Quote, she called me at work and she said when the arrest, sorry, this is probably before the probable cause affidavit, but when the first 2 arrests were made. Right. She called me at work and said, quote, Sara, I'm shaking. And I said, what's going on? She says, arrests have been made in Danny's murder. And I said, that's wonderful. That's so good. You should be relaxed. I know you're safe. This is good. And guys, what do we think Wendi says? And if you know already, don't ruin it for the rest of the class. But really, what do we think this bitch says? Of course, what any person would say in this situation. What if my crazy brother Charlie hired a hitman? Because, of course, anyone's normal response to finding out arrest had finally been made in the murder of your ex-husband, before ever even being aware of the probable cause affidavit that implicates your entire family of organizing this hit, would obviously be to jump to the most logical conclusion that your brother probably hired them. I mean, come on, we would all say that. What is wrong with you, Wendi?
Stop it. Get some help.
So the lawyers ask her to verify if this information was provided by the probable cause affidavit. And Sara confirms that this statement was made prior to the affidavits being released. So when Wendi proposes the idea of, what if my brother Charlie hired a hitman? Sara replies to her that that's his problem. Her belief being at the time that there wasn't any way possible that Wendi was involved in this. During this conversation, Wendi told Sara that they were asking her to give a statement, to which Sara encouraged, quote, I told her to give a statement. I said, when you gave a statement earlier, it was, it really helped clear the air. It helped you so that everybody knew that you had nothing to hide and no involvement. And I think that you should do that again. She continues, quote, now, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I practiced for many years, and I've never given a client the advice to go ahead and make a statement. So then they asked her, why would she give that advice to her best friend? She says, quote, because I thought she was being sincere. I thought that she would be believed, and I thought I thought it would clear the air for her in the quickest way possible. And I did not think that there was a chance that she could have been involved in it. And I thought her very best move is to prove in a court of public opinion, not the court of law, public opinion, that she's not involved in this. And so being open and forthcoming, in my mind, was the best way to do that. Friendship advice, not necessarily legal advice. You only get clients who give statements and the bad things happen, right? The arrests happen. You don't hear from the people who give a statement and then they're absolved of any suspicion, right? That case doesn't come to your desk as an attorney because it doesn't become a case. So I believe that she was being sincere and truthful, and that especially with her suspicion clouding around her brother, right, that would only happen because she's now telling me that she suspects her brother. The lawyer stopped her and asked, quote, "Wait a minute, hang on just a second, because a moment ago we were talking as if none of this information about Charlie was available." And Sara confirms, it wasn't. It wasn't. The lawyers inquire, "But when you said when suspicion is clouding around her brother, what suspicion?" She clarifies, quote, "From her phrase, she wouldn't say, 'What if my crazy brother Charlie hired a hitman?' if there wasn't some suspicion in her mind that Charlie has something to do with it." Adding, quote, "I don't have independent reason to believe that it's Charlie. She brought that up." She is then asked if she knows who was asking Wendi to give a statement. If it was law enforcement, media, a deposition. And Sara said she didn't know. The lawyer inquires, quote, "But she's asking you a question of they're asking me to give a statement and I'm not sure whether I should or am I not." It was just going to basically be, I don't know whether I should or I shouldn't. Sara goes on to say that she felt like Wendi was dissatisfied with her response, telling her to give a statement. So Sara ends up saying, quote, "Don't do it." Adding, quote, "I think the fact that I was a defense attorney, this was my belief. I think she felt that I would likely tell her not to talk because that's what defense attorneys do and should do." The lawyers asked her what precipitated from that. And she said, "In the short term, nothing." Quote, "The phone call ended. I told her not to be afraid, that things are going to work out and it's going to be okay. Sometime thereafter, Charlie and Donna are implicated when, in a probable cause affidavit. She does email me to ask to give a statement on behalf of the family. Wendi asked me to give a statement, saying that the family is innocent. Okay. And I declined doing that. I said I would not do that. And I had the email. And this is, of course, the email that we read in the beginning of this video. Sara elaborates, quote, "I said, I knew too much about the marriage and I don't want to be part of, then I'll become part of discovery. I just want to keep you safe. And I don't think that it would be useful for you if I get involved and asked about the acrimonious divorce. I don't think that's really useful for you or something like that. I just said, it's better for you if I'm not part of this." And what I said, so I guess I said I wouldn't give the statement, meaning you're fucked now, Wendi. She is then prompted to explain any other situations that may have arose prior to her cutting Wendi off. Sara continues to regale us, quote, "I was living quite far from work in the year before the separation, and so sometime I would spend the night at friends' houses that were close to my work. And so Wendi very generously and kindly invited me to spend the night at her place on South Beach. And, we were getting ready for bed, and she said something offhanded like, 'Poor Charlie's having panic attacks.' And I said that statement really stopped me in my tracks because it was like, I felt like it was a very clear example of her trying to get others believing that Charlie wasn't involved. And so I asked her, I said, 'Wendi, is believing in Charlie's actual innocence a prerequisite of this friendship?' And she said no. She explains, quote, 'The significance of that statement to me is that she was okay with me believing that her brother was involved. And if I believed that my brother was innocent of a murder, but my friend believed that they were guilty, the friendship is over. You can't believe that my brother is guilty of a crime that he's not guilty of and still be my friend. So I believe that Wendi, and based on the other statements that she had made to me in the course of this time period, I believe that she was well aware of her brother's involvement in this case. So when she later said he had nothing to do with it, quote, I would never believe that my brother, there's no way possible, it's impossible. She's asked, what do you think that she knew of Charlie's involvement, if he's involved, I mean? Because she said, what if my crazy brother Charlie hired a hitman? I think that meant that she knew her crazy brother Charlie hired a hitman. Very astute, Sarah. I believe that she knew that he was involved, and the fact that she was okay with me believing that he was involved, that we could still be friends if I believe that Charlie's involved, to me, it confirms that she accepted Charlie's involvement, but subsequently has given statements that it's impossible that he was involved.
Now, you stated on direct examination that you are a lawyer.
I am a lawyer.
Right. So you understand that the oath that you took before you took the stand, correct?
Yes.
You know the consequences of not being truthful here.
Of course.
And you also have a separate obligation as an attorney to tell the truth, right?
Of course.
Okay. Now, do you know who killed Dan Markel?
No.
Did your brother have anything to do with killing Dan Markel?
I don't believe so.
Your mother is Donna Adelson?
She is.
Where is she right now?
Right now, she's with my children.
Not in Tallahassee?
In Miami.
Okay. She's not in jail?
No.
She's never been arrested before?
No.
Okay. She's not even testifying in this case, is she? To
No.
your knowledge?
To my knowledge, no.
What about your brother Charlie? Is he in Miami right now?
He's probably in Fort Lauderdale right now.
Okay, but he hasn't been arrested?
No.
Hasn't been charged?
No.
And he's not testifying in this case, is he?
No.
Okay.
Were you involved in any way in a plot to kill Dan Markel?
No.
Do you have any knowledge other than the statements you said your brother made or the jokes your brother made? Do you have any knowledge of anyone being involved in a plot to kill your husband?
No.
You understand that you can't protect your brother Charles, who's going through this case, and protect yourself at the same time. You understand that, right?
I'm here to share the truth with you. I don't know how to answer the question.
Then please end the madness and share the truth. Will you please share the truth with this juror?
I've been sharing the truth since I walked in here. I've done nothing but share the truth.
You know what happened here, despite your claims to the jury that you haven't looked at anything, you haven't discussed with anybody, and you haven't confronted your brother. You know what happened here, right?
I do not know what happened here, and if I did, I would have shared it with the police 8 years ago.
Would you ever ask someone to do something like this?
Not in a million years.
Okay. Do you think someone would do this for your benefit without asking you?
No.
What good does it serve?
I made my brother, the one, his name is Charlie, the one I'm really close to, he makes a lot of jokes in bad taste, and it was a joke he made. He bought the TV for me this morning that got broken, and I was talking to him about whether it made sense to pay to fix it or whether I should get a new one, and it was always his joke that, like, he knew Danny treated me badly, and it was always his joke. He said, I looked into hiring a hitman, and it was cheaper to get you this TV, so instead I got you this TV. I mean, he would never. He's my big brother, and he's been taking care of me since I was little, but he would never. And I told that to the repair guy this morning.
Right.
Your interview, July 18, 2014, you said, my brother, he joked about hiring a hitman. Perhaps that was you just planting a seed to divert the attention of law enforcement away from you.
It was not.
That's okay.
I said, he asked me how much it cost, and I said I didn't know because it was a gift, because my brother said it was cheaper than a hitman. It was my divorce present.
Okay.
Such a horrible thing to say. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, so we're walking into the house and we're having chit chat, and she says, "Can I tell something to you confidentially?" And I said, "Sure." And she tells me that last summer When the relocation got denied, Charlie investigated multiple ways to fix this problem of Danny Markel, including hiring a hitman, and that it was going to cost about $15,000. And I'm unsure if that number is 15,000 or 50,000 because they sound similar, but she told me that the previous summer, that Charlie had looked into having Danny killed by a hitman.
All right, so that would have been the summer of 2013.
Yes.
Okay, and when she told you this statement, you previously characterized the TV statement as a joke.
Mhm.
Was this statement also in the characterization of a joke?
No, these are two discrete, completely different things. She had a joke she would make about a TV being cheaper than a hitman. I knew that joke. This was a separate statement. This was chilling. This wasn't funny. This made my stomach flip. I found it disturbing at the time. It's completely different.
And the statement was made 5 days before the murder of Dan Markel
That's correct.
by a hitman.
That's right.
You know that your brother went behind your back, don't you?
I do not.
Like he always does. This is something that he has always done, isn't it?
Not.
You found out after that your brother had done this and gone behind your back. That's why you were throwing up at that dinner, right?
No, it's not.
You know that it didn't involve Katie either, right?
I don't know anything about
If you're not going to say all of that and finally give the truth, why don't you just admit to this jury that you're guilty?
because I'm not guilty.
Miss Adelson, you understand that until you expose your brother what he did, that everybody's going to consider you as guilty. You understand that, right?
What is the question that you're asking me?
You understand that until you expose your brother and explain what he did, that he went behind everybody's back, that he hired a hitman to murder your ex-husband, you'll remain guilty in the eyes of the world.
I can't speak to the eyes of the world. I can only know that I have done nothing wrong.
Or maybe you are guilty.
I am not guilty.
All right, so we're coming back to maybe you do know, or maybe you were involved. Now, you deny, I'm assuming, that on July 13, 2014, you told Jeffrey Lacoste that Charles looked into hiring a hitman. You deny that, or you admit that?
I deny that.
Letting you know the topic we're on, we're talking about you being involved.
Did your brother ever mention hiring a hitman to kill Dan Markel?
No.
I'm going to turn your attention to your law enforcement interview, and I'm referring to page 25, lines 13 through 15. Send me under a tab. Stick this tab here.
Okay.
All right, so page 25. You find it?
Yes.
Quote, "It was always his joke. He said, I looked into hiring a hitman and it was cheaper to get you this TV." Is that what he said?
That was a joke that he made, yes.
And hiring the hitman, that was to kill Dan Markel, right? That was the joke.
That was the joke that he made in poor taste, yes.
Not to kill someone else.
No. Well, he never used his name.
Okay. Well, he's hiring you the TV because it's cheaper as a divorce present than a hitman. Who else would he be hitting with the hitman?
I never really thought about it because it was not a thing that he meant. He just made a bad joke.
Well, you repeated the joke, didn't you?
He repeated the joke.
Didn't you also repeat the joke?
To other people?
Yes, like Jeff Lacoste.
I never said that to Jeff Lacoste.
You didn't tell Jeff Lacoste that your brother got you that TV as a divorce present because it was cheaper than hiring a hitman.
I may have repeated that joke in the context of the TV, yes.
Right. Nothing to see here. Lawyers ask her, so she's questioning you, and I guess questioning out loud, what if my brother is involved? And you take this to mean that she believes that her brother is involved, just not just a question of what if he's involved. And then later on in time, you take exception to her saying, I don't think that it was possible that my brother was involved in this. You see those as conflicting. Sara affirms that yes, she sees that as a conflict. They ask her if this contributed to her dissolving the friendship. And she states, yes, quote, because I felt like she was trying to protect her family. And she was aware of her family's involvement, but was trying to get other people to believe that her family wasn't involved. So part of that. She is then asked, what involvement did Wendi say that her family had, other than the question of what if Charlie hired a hitman? And Sara says, quote, none, other than there was no other involvement that she said her family had, but that question to me meant that she either believed or strongly suspected Charlie was involved. And then I took exception to her asking me to give a statement to the media saying that the family is innocent. I took exception to that. I also took exception to, this is my poor brother Charlie is having panic attacks, as though he should be the object of sympathy in this circumstance. The lawyer cuts her off to ask, have you drawn the conclusion that Donna is guilty, or the Adelsons in general are guilty of doing something? Sara, yes, I have. Lawyer, what are they guilty of doing? Sara, conspiring to murder Dan Markel. Oh my God. And that is not all the Adelsons. Donna, Charlie, and Wendi, in my opinion, are guilty of that crime. The lawyer says, okay. Sara, and soliciting somebody to kill him. She then confirms that her opinion was further strengthened on the subsequent probable cause affidavits, the sworn testimonies of witnesses, as well as her own personal observations. She continues, but everything, all of the trial testimony, opening and closing arguments, I'm a defense attorney. And it's something that touched my life in a very personal way and really affected my sense of safety in the world. I was very, very impacted personally by this case. She is then asked if Wendi ever reached out to Sara after she sent the breakup email. Sara said Wendi either sent 2 texts or 2 emails that Sara did not respond to. Hey, I miss my friend. Read. Savage. I love it. She is then asked to explain how she became a witness in this case. Sara replied, after the last trial, I saw Phil Markel's victim impact statement. I watched it and I was moved to tears. It was very, very sad for the Markels. I hadn't realized how old they had become for some reason. In my head, they were just frozen as much younger people, but I didn't realize that they were hovering around 80. And the fact that Phil spent so much time talking about the grandparent alienation and how they don't have a meaningful relationship with the children, it made me feel really awful. I had been following the grandparent legislation, and I knew that if they were to prove some sort of civil liability, that they might have a shot at court-ordered meaningful visitation. So I talked to some people I really respect, some mentors in my life, and I said, if I were to provide information, do you think it would put the Markels in a position to petition for meaningful visitation? One of these people is a lawyer who went to Harvard. One of these people is a lawyer who went to Yale. They're 2 of the smartest people I know. And they said, yeah, it's, of course. I knew that the minute you said something that you could become part of a criminal trial. That was not my goal. I certainly did not want to be part of a criminal trial, but I knew that it was a possibility. And so I didn't feel like if I didn't say anything, I'm not helping the Markels who deserve help. She continues explaining that she reached out to the Markels lawyer who then passed her name on to Georgia Kappelman. Phil Markel's victim impact statement was heartbreaking. The love and admiration he had for Danny is truly unmatched.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Phil Markel. I am Dan Markel's father. Dan, my only son, was born October 9, 1972, in Montreal, Quebec. During that time in Quebec, husbands were not allowed to actually be in the delivery room during a child's birth. However, since the obstetrician was a very close friend of ours, I was allowed to experience the most amazing of moments, the birth of my son. I will never forget the emergence of his head, and then those shoulders of an NFL football fullback, a boy of 10 pounds. There I was, holding in my arms this gift of life, my buddy. From the time he was a child, my son had tremendous energy, intelligence, and great warmth. Dan had a vibrant, fun-loving personality and lived life to its fullest. Danny loved to socialize, dance, cook, entertain, and play sports, and dedicated himself wholeheartedly to everything that he did. He always looked to do his utmost to improve and achieve better results in every activity that he did. This desire of improvement and commitment to excellence was a defining character. I fondly remember taking Danny skiing up the hills in the Laurentian Mountains, and he rode up the mountain between my legs, holding on to the T-bar, and then coming down the ski hill yelling with great joy, "Faster, Dad, faster!" Then, as he grew a little older, he played hockey at the local park. To improve his skating skills, he requested to take a speed skating lesson with a local coach who was from Russia, and he had a reputation of being a very tough coach. Dan persevered, and after every hockey lesson, he came off the ice with a red face, totally out of breath, because he always gave it. At the age of 13, Danny developed the idea that he was going to Harvard University for his college education. He discovered that the acceptance requirements for Harvard were not only good grades, but also work for the community and charitable work. To achieve these goals, he revived his high school newspaper. He became the newspaper's editor, the business manager, and performed charitable deeds and volunteered in the community. After years of hard work and determination, Dan was accepted to Harvard. He graduated from Harvard magna cum laude, went on to study at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem for 1 year, and then earned a master's in philosophy and political theory from Emmanuel College at the University of Cambridge in England. He returned thereafter to Harvard Law School to earn his law degree, and went on to become an extremely successful lawyer, influential legal scholar. Dan served as a law clerk for a federal judge, worked as an associate at a prestigious law firm in Washington, D.C., and then secured a prestigious teaching position at FSU College of Law. In a few short years, Dan became a full tenured law clerk at 41, quite unusual. Dan co-authored a book and published many articles in highly regarded law journals and newspapers like the New York Times. Dan's work was influential, and he gave lectures and presented at universities around the world. Although Dan was fond of his Canadian roots, he was very dedicated to the FSU Law School and the Tallahassee community. He was recognized as a scholar who contributed and made a difference in the world. While Dan's career was important to him, family meant everything to Dan. Dan's marriage produced 2 boys, Benjamin and Lincoln, the world and the love of his life. Dan arranged his entire life around these 2 boys. He would arrange his teaching schedule, travel plans, exercise, activities, all around his desire to spend as much time as possible with his 2 boys. He would meet them for breakfast at their preschool, He would sit in the middle of a circle with Benjamin and Lincoln and all the other classmates and tell stories, read or sing songs as they ate breakfast. Benjamin and Lincoln were his pride and joy and meant absolutely everything to him. Dan made sure that he and the boys came to Montreal and Toronto to attend every family affair and visit with all the extended Markel family, including grandparents, uncles, aunts, and many numerous cousins. Despite the distance, Dan felt that the boys had to know and be a part to make sure that he and the boys participated in the Tallahassee community. They were involved in the local synagogue and neighborhood. Dan left home at the young age of 17 to go to Harvard, but he always came home for summer vacation, holidays, and all family functions. Danny and I, despite the fact that we lived quite far apart, regularly communicated by text, email, and phone call. Despite the physical distance, as time moved on, we grew ever so much closer. At Dan's suggestion, we would plan to talk and have a meal together. At the appointed day and time, we each would prepare our meals, set our tables with a tablet in the middle, and over Skype, we would sit together and enjoy each other's company for a couple of hours despite the actual distance. Dan's life was abruptly cut short, and he was forever taken from me, his boys, and the rest of our family, and all his many friends and colleagues. My life has been in total disarray since Dan's murder. Many nights I wake up in the middle of the night in a terrible sweat with thoughts of Dan's murder and all that has happened. There is not a single day in my life since Danny's death that in one way or another he does not enter into my thoughts. And I miss him with all my heart. I'm constantly reminded of Dan's murder and his absence. When I meet new people, the topic of discussion always comes up when they ask whether I have children. How do I respond? It is difficult to put into words the hideous acts that took Danny away from us, the unthinkable pain that I must live with every single day. Losing a son or a daughter is something I wish nobody should have to experience. It's not in the order of nature. I need to hope and pray for justice and the return to normalcy of seeing and playing a vital role in the lives of our two grandsons, Ben and Lincoln. It has been a number of years since I last wrote a victim impact statement, sharing how Danny's death has affected me. Despite our persistent efforts, we still do not have a real relationship with Danny's sons, Ben and Lincoln. Visits are limited and very controlled. For 6 years, we were denied any and all visits with the boys. In the last 2 years, I've been permitted 2 60 to 90-minute visits. Not only have I lost my son, but I have effectively lost 2 of my grandkids as well. Even their family names have been changed from Markel to Abelson. While we work hard to help introduce a new bill in the state of Florida known as the Markel Act, which gives grandparents important rights, unfortunately, our relationship with Ben and Lincoln has not been materially improved. As this bill was coming to fruition, there was a lot of negative publicity in the press and media about Danny's ex-wife, Wendi. In my opinion, Wendi was focused on improving her public image, and as a result extended an invitation to us to Ben's bar mitzvah. Ruth and I were invited to attend only the ceremonial part of this important stage in a Jewish boy's life. and we were not invited to participate in any reception typical of this celebration. But this invitation opened the door to one of the limited visits described above. In order not overwhelm Ben and Lincoln on this important day, we asked to arrange a meeting before the bar mitzvah in order to make things easier on the boys, who we hadn't been allowed to visit in years. We were able to arrange a brief 90-minute supervised visit with Ben and Lincoln, and this was a few weeks before the bar mitzvah. However, immediately after our brief visit, Sara was arrested, and Wendi rescinded our invitation to the bar mitzvah. At the time, she said that they were going to either postpone or completely cancel this bar mitzvah ceremony. Neither of those happened. Excuse me.
Take your time, sir.
Instead, my understanding is that the Ailtons went on to have the bar mitzvah ceremony and party, all without the Markel family's presence or participation. Missing out on this important moment in Ben's life was incredibly painful. After so many years without Danny, we had hoped to make progress in forging a consistent relationship with his sons. But this still has many challenges. This is the year that Lincoln turns 13, the age of bar mitzvah. As yet, we have not been informed of bar mitzvah, nor if we will be invited to participate in this very important time of Lincoln's life. I have very little hope that we will be allowed to participate in this important life cycle event. Dan's murder brought his life abruptly to an end for no sensible reason and has affected a countless number of people. The legal community is deprived of Dan's wisdom and ideas, which made the world a better place. Dan's students are deprived of the experience of having Dan as a brilliant professor and caring mentor showing them a path. Dan's colleagues can no longer benefit from Dan's friendship, insights, and scholarly discussions and debates. Ruth and I have been deprived of our son, who has been taken away from us so suddenly. Ben and Lincoln must go through life without their father, who loved them with all his being. The boys have been deprived of their father's entire family after Dan's murder. We have no idea of what these two boys know or have been told about Danny's death. I truly believe that they have, from the ages of 3 and 4 years of age to the present day. I also have no idea what the boys know of us, the entire Martel family, our history, etc., and especially how much we all love them and how we wish they were active part of our family. Both Ruth and I are approaching 80 years of age. At this moment we are healthy, but one does not know what tomorrow brings. The wheels of justice turn very, very slowly, but so far we're very grateful that they're still turning. We're very grateful to Tallahassee law enforcement, to the state attorney and all their staff, to all our relatives and friends, including the hundreds of Danny's friends and colleagues around the world, for their constant support over these long 10 years. To all the podcasters who work hard to keep alive this unbelievable story. We are still waiting for Benjamin and Lincoln to have a more normal relationship with the Markel family as we wait in pain and anguish. The Adelson family, in particular Charlie Adelson, has been a major cause of our heartbreak and the murder of our son Danny and the loss of our 2 grandsons. I have suffered tremendously, and we as a family continue to suffer. It is satisfying to see justice being done, and it would be appropriate to ask for the maximum sentence for the perpetrators of Danny's murder. Thank you. Today is a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Markell. Was there anything else that you wish to say as a part of your victim impact?
No, sir.
Mr. Markell is 100% a class act, but I so wish that when Judge ever asked him if he had anything else to add, he would have taken a page from Ryan Fitzpatrick's playbook.
I don't owe you shit. I'll be on the phone with the FBI today. Get your affairs in order before prison, punk. You're gonna rot in jail, you mom, fag. You open your mouth and I will open mine. Watch, motherfucker. You're a miserable Jew and you're gonna get what you deserve. I dare you to threaten me again. I'll be on the phone with the FBI before you blink, you murderer. Get fucked. I'm gonna get you in jail. I wanna propose a wager. Over, under on Life Plus. That's what you said.
Yeah.
No further questions.
I know Dan was trying to discredit Ryan as a witness by trying to show that he had some sort of bias against Charlie. But all he did was provide the most entertaining and hilarious part of the trial. Even Sarah and Georgia are caught in the background trying not to crack up.
I want to propose a wager. Over, under on Life Plus. That's what you said.
Yeah.
No further questions.
So good. Even though the state is not planning on using Sarah as a witness in Donna's trial, I think the information that she has on Wendi is much more valuable. To me, this is just another huge mark against Wendi, which I find proves her guilt. And as hard as it is to wait for the wheels of justice to yank her in like a factory worker who's a touch too close to the machinery, oh, hey, Georgia, you just need me to look at something down here? Until that day, I will continue to peel apart every layer of Wendi's facade until we have revealed the monster that she truly is. Thanks for watching.